The gas station sat alone on Route 47, miles from anywhere that mattered. It was the kind of place travelers stopped once and forgot immediately. Cracked pavement, flickering neon, and a restroom door that never quite closed. But on that cold November evening, it became the setting for something no one would forget. Jake "Iron" Malone pulled his Harley into the lot just after 7 p.m., his leather vest worn soft from a decade of rides. He'd stopped for coffee and a stretch, nothing more. The rumble of his engine faded as he cut the ignition, and in that sudden silence, he heard it. A small, choked sob coming from behind the dumpsters. He found the boy there, maybe 8 years old, curled against the rusted metal like he was trying to disappear. His clothes were dirty, his face streaked with tears, and when their eyes met, the child flinched. Jake knelt slowly, keeping his distance, and spoke in the calm voice he'd learned from talking down traumatized veterans. "Hey, buddy, you okay?" The boy's lip trembled. Then, barely louder than a breath, he whispered, "Please don't let him find me." If you're watching, take a moment to pause and breathe. This story gets intense, but stick with us. You need to hear what happened next. Those 6 words changed everything. Jake didn't ask who he was. He didn't need to. The fear in that child's eyes told him enough. He radioed his riding brothers. 15 minutes later, 11 motorcycles surrounded the gas station like a steel fortress. By midnight, 97 bikers from 3 counties had converged on Route 47, forming a chain of protection that would shake a small town to its core and expose secrets buried for far too long. This is the story of a promise kept in the shadow of broken laws, of men who wore leather but carried honor, and of a boy who learned that sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the one you're born into. It's about what happens when justice wears a cut instead of a badge, and why some promises are worth every risk. The fluorescent lights inside the gas station buzzed like dying insects. Jake stood at the counter, his coffee growing cold in a styrofoam cup he hadn't touched. Through the smudged window, he watched Tommy, the boy had finally given his name, sitting on the curb wrapped in Jake's spare jacket. It swallowed him whole. "You gonna pay for that or just stare out the window all night?" The clerk's voice carried the exhaustion of a double shift. Jake slid a 20 across the counter without looking. "Kid out there, he alone when you opened." "Didn't see no kid." The clerk's eyes shifted. "Didn't see nothing." That hesitation, that slight tremor in the man's voice, told Jake everything. Fear had a particular smell in small towns, and this place reeked of it. Outside, Jake's phone vibrated. "Marcus Reaper Cole. On my way, bring in the crew. What's the situation?" Jake typed back, "Kid in trouble, scared of someone, don't know who yet." Within minutes, the first bikes arrived. Marcus pulled up on his custom Sportster, his silver beard catching the neon glow. Behind him came Luis, Denny, and Carter, men Jake had ridden with for years, men who'd answered worse calls than this in the middle of worse nights. "Talk to me," Marcus said, dismounting. "Boy says someone's looking for him. Won't say who. Won't say where he came from." Jake kept his voice low. "But he's terrified, Mark. Like witnessed something terrified." Marcus studied Tommy through narrowed eyes. The boy sat perfectly still, watching the growing number of motorcycles with an expression caught between hope and disbelief. "Where's his family?" "Says he doesn't have any. Says he took care of that." Jake's jaw tightened. The way he said it. "I don't think he means adoption." Luis approached the boy slowly, crouching to his level. He'd been a paramedic before the open road called him, and he still carried that gentle authority. "Tommy, right? I'm Luis. Can you tell me if you're hurt anywhere?" The boy shook his head, but his hands were shaking. "You hungry?" A small nod. "Okay. We're gonna get you something to eat. But first, I need you to tell me who's looking for you." Tommy's eyes went wide. His voice dropped to that same terrified whisper. "Mr. Garrison, he's gonna be so mad. He said if I ever ran, he'd make sure I never stopped running." The name hung in the air like a curse. Marcus pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. 30 seconds later, he showed Jake the screen. Richard Garrison, owner of Garrison Family Services, a private foster care agency operating in 3 counties. Clean record, community awards, church deacon, the kind of man nobody questions. "How long were you with him?" Jake asked gently. 2 years, since the accident. Tommy's voice cracked. "But there wasn't no accident. I know what I saw." Marcus and Jake exchanged looks. This wasn't a runaway situation. This was something else entirely, something that required more than just a warm meal and a phone call to the authorities. "Tommy," Jake said, kneeling beside Luis, "we're not going to let anyone hurt you. You understand? Not while we're here. You can't stop him." The boy's certainty was heartbreaking. Nobody can. He knows everyone. The sheriff, the judge, everyone. And there it was, the real reason for the terror, not just fear of one man, but fear of an entire system that protected him. Jake stood meeting Marcus's eyes. The decision was made without words. "Luis, stay with him. Get him food from across the street. Nothing from this gas station." Jake's voice carried command now. "Carter, I need you to make some calls. Discreet ones. Find out everything about Garrison Family Services, complaints, investigations, anything buried." "You thinking what I'm thinking?" Marcus asked. "Yeah. This kid didn't run because he was mistreated. He ran because he saw something he shouldn't have." Jake looked back at Tommy, who was watching them with desperate hope. "And whatever he saw was bad enough that a powerful man can't risk him talking." The rumble of more motorcycles echoed across the empty highway. The call had gone out through the network. Brothers helping brothers, the code they'd all sworn to uphold. By dawn, Route 47 would become a fortress, but tonight they had a boy to protect and a truth to uncover. The game had changed, and Richard Garrison had no idea what was coming. By 9 p.m., the parking lot looked like a biker convention. 23 motorcycles lined the perimeter, their riders forming a human barrier between Tommy and the darkness beyond. Some stood smoking, others checked their phones, but all of them watched the road with the practiced vigilance of men who'd learned to spot trouble before it arrived. Jake had moved Tommy inside his truck, doors locked, heater running. The boy ate a gas station sandwich like he hadn't seen food in days. Maybe he hadn't. Through the windshield, Jake watched Marcus coordinate the arriving crews, assigning positions, establishing a perimeter that would make any approach visible from 100 yards out. "Mr. Jake?" Tommy's small voice pulled him back. "Why are you helping me? Because it's the right thing to do, but you don't even know me." Jake turned to face him fully. "Kid, I don't need to know you deserve better than whatever you're running from. That's how this works. We look out for people who can't look out for themselves." Tommy was quiet for a moment, then, "The others. The other kids. They're still there." Jake's blood ran cold. "There are more." 5. Sarah, Michael, twins named Emma and Ethan, and little Carlos. He's only 6. Tommy's hands twisted in his lap. "Mr. Garrison keeps us in the house on Willow Creek Road, the big white one with the black fence. He tells everyone we're foster kids, but what? But we never go to school, never see doctors, never leave except when he takes us to church on Sundays to show how good he is." The words tumbled out now, a dam breaking, "And at night, sometimes people come, rich people in nice cars. They go into his office with him, and sometimes one of the kids goes too, and when they come back they don't talk about it, ever." Jake forced himself to stay calm, but his hands clenched the steering wheel hard enough to hurt. This wasn't neglect. This wasn't even abuse in the traditional sense. This was something far more organized, far more evil. Marcus appeared at the driver's window. Jake stepped out, closing the door gently behind him. "We got a problem," Marcus said quietly. "Carter just got a call from his sheriff's office contact." Garrison filed a missing child report 3 hours ago, said Tommy's emotionally disturbed, prone to lying, might be dangerous to himself. Setting up the narrative. Exactly. If Tommy tries to tell anyone what he saw, Garrison's already established he's unstable. Marcus glanced back at the truck. Smart, calculated. This guy's done this before. Tommy says there are 5 more kids at his house. Says Garrison brings people there, rich people, uses the kids somehow. Jake couldn't say the rest out loud, but Marcus understood. Jesus! Marcus ran a hand through his beard. We need evidence. Real evidence. Otherwise, it's a scared kid's word against a pillar of the community. Then we get evidence. Jake pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts. I know someone. Ex-FBI went private. Owes me a favor from Denver. You sure you want to pull that thread? This could get heavy fast. It already is heavy. We just didn't know it yet. Jake hit the call button. We're past the point of simple protection, Mark. If what Tommy's saying is true, we're looking at organized trafficking using foster care as cover. That's federal, that's big. The phone rang twice before a woman's voice answered. Malone, it's been 3 years. This better be good. Diana, I need a favor. The kind that doesn't leave paper trails. I'm listening. Jake laid it out in 3 minutes. The boy, the fear, the implications. Diana listened without interrupting, and when he finished, the silence stretched just long enough to make him worry. Then, text me the address. I'll have surveillance on that house by midnight. But Jake, if this is what you think it is, you need to understand something. People who run operations like this don't fold easy. They have protection, resources. They'll burn everything and everyone to keep it hidden. I know. Including you and your boys. I know that too. Another pause. Okay, but when this goes hot, and it will go hot, you make sure that kid is somewhere safe, because they'll come for him hard. The call ended. Jake turned to find 47 bikers watching him, waiting for orders. The number had nearly doubled in the last hour. Word traveled fast in their world. A child in danger. Brothers needed. Listen up, Jake's voice carried across the lot. This situation is bigger than we thought. We're not just protecting one kid from one bad guy. We're looking at an organized operation, trafficking, possibly worse, with connections to local law enforcement. The muttering stopped. Every face turned serious. That means we're not just babysitting tonight. We're preparing for a fight. Not physical, not unless it has to be, but legal, political, and definitely dangerous. He let that sink in. Anyone who wants out, no judgment. This isn't your standard ride. Nobody moved. Marcus stepped forward. Then we do this right. Shifts, 4-hour rotations, no alcohol, no confrontations. We document everything, every car that passes, every face we see. We become witnesses they can't ignore. Jake nodded. And we protect that boy like he's our own, because right now, we're all he's got. As the crews organized themselves, Jake returned to the truck. Tommy was asleep finally, his small body curled under the jacket. He looked even younger in sleep, innocent, vulnerable, everything a child should be allowed to be. Jake made a silent promise then, the kind that lived in bone-deep certainty. Whatever it took, however long it took, Tommy and those other kids would be free, even if it meant burning Richard Garrison's perfect life to the ground. The temperature dropped to 38 degrees by 11 p.m. Jake distributed spare jackets and set up a rotation system that kept fresh eyes on the road at all times. Luis had checked Tommy for injuries, found nothing physical, but the psychological damage was written in every flinch, every sudden startle at unexpected sounds. He's gonna need therapy, Luis said quietly, standing beside Jake near the truck. Professional help. Whatever happened in that house, it carved itself deep. First we get him safe, then we get him help. Jake watched the road, headlights cutting through the darkness every few minutes, normal traffic, nothing suspicious yet. Diana's people should be in position by now. His phone buzzed. Eyes on target. White colonial, black iron fence. Lights on in 3 rooms. First floor office, second floor bedroom, basement. Motion detected in basement 30 minutes ago. Jake texted back. How many subjects? Thermal shows 7 heat signatures. 1 adult male, 6 smaller, consistent with children. Adult pacing, children stationary. 7 signatures. Garrison plus 6 kids. Tommy had said 5 others, but maybe he'd miscounted, or maybe Garrison had acquired another child since Tommy ran. The thought made Jake sick. We got movement, Carter's voice crackled through the radio. Black SUV, tinted windows, coming from the east, slowing down. Every biker straightened, hands moving to pockets, to belts, to whatever they carried for protection. The SUV rolled past the gas station twice, slow enough to count heads, fast enough to maintain deniability. Jake memorized the plate, TKF 4782. They're scouting, Marcus said, counting our numbers, deciding if we're a problem. Let them see exactly how big of a problem we are. Jake keyed his radio. Everyone, high beams on, all of them. Let's light this place up like Christmas. 47 motorcycles ignited their headlights simultaneously. The parking lot exploded into brilliant white light, shadows banished, every detail exposed. The SUV accelerated away, tires squealing slightly. Message sent, Louis said with grim satisfaction. But Jake knew it wasn't over. That had been reconnaissance. The real pressure would come later, probably through official channels, police, social services, anyone Garrison could leverage. At 1:47 a.m. it began. 2 sheriff's vehicles pulled into the lot, light bars flashing. Jake watched Sheriff Warren emerge from the first car, a heavy-set man in his 50s, who moved with the confidence of someone who'd never been seriously challenged in his jurisdiction. "Who's in charge here?" Warren's voice boomed across the lot. Jake stepped forward, flanked by Marcus. "That'd be me, Jake Malone. Mr. Malone, I'm going to need you and your associates to disperse. We've had complaints about public disturbance, loitering, and intimidation." "Intimidation of who, Sheriff? We're standing in a public parking lot, not bothering anyone. I have a report that you're harboring a missing child, a boy named Tommy Westfield, ward of the state, currently in the legal custody of Richard Garrison." Warren stepped closer. "That child needs to be returned immediately." "Hey, viewer, we're in North Carolina and it's currently 1:52 a.m. Things are about to get tense. The sheriff's here and he's not on the right side of this. Stay with us." "That child," Jake said carefully, "came to us terrified, begging for protection. He made specific allegations about abuse and trafficking. We're not handing him over to anyone until those allegations are properly investigated." "By who? You?" Warren's laugh was harsh. "You're not law enforcement, Mr. Malone. You're a bunch of bikers playing hero. Now, you can hand the boy over peaceful, or I can arrest every single one of you for kidnapping and custodial interference." Marcus spoke up then, his voice level but hard. "Sheriff, with all due respect, if that boy is in danger, and we have reason to believe he is, then we have a moral and legal obligation to protect him. There's legal precedent for citizen intervention in cases of immediate harm to a minor." "You a lawyer now, old man?" "No, but I called one. She's on her way." Marcus held up his phone. "Jenny Blackwood. I believe you know her." Warren's face darkened. Jenny Blackwood was the state's most notorious child advocate attorney, the kind who took on cases nobody else would touch and won them through sheer tenacity and legal brilliance. "This is obstruction. This is protection," Jake interrupted. "And we're not moving until a neutral third party evaluates Tommy's claims. If we're wrong, we'll face the consequences. But if we're right, and you force us to hand that boy back to his abuser." Jake let the implication hang. Warren stared at them for a long moment, calculations running behind his eyes. Finally, "You're making a big mistake." Richard Garrison is a respected member of this community. What you're doing here, it's slander, harassment, and it won't end well for any of you. Maybe, Jake said, but we'll sleep fine tonight, knowing we didn't send a scared kid back to hell. The sheriff left, but the threat lingered in the air like smoke. They'd made an enemy of local law enforcement. From here, everything would be harder. Tommy was awake in the truck, watching through the window with wide eyes. Jake returned to find him trembling. "They're gonna take me back." "No!" Jake's voice was iron. "No, they're not. I promise you, Tommy. You're not going back there, not ever." The boy wanted to believe him. Jake could see it in his face, that desperate hunger for safety, for someone who actually meant their promises. "What happens now?" Tommy whispered. "Now we wait for the cavalry, and we prepare for war." Because that's what this had become, a war between those who protected innocence and those who preyed on it, and Jake Malone had never lost a war that mattered. Not yet. Jenny Blackwood arrived at 3:17 a.m. in a silver Volvo that had seen better years. She emerged wearing jeans, a leather jacket, and an expression that suggested she'd done this particular dance too many times before. Jake had met her twice, once in court, once at a veteran's benefit, and both times he'd been impressed by the barely controlled fury she brought to every case involving children. "Malone." She nodded, surveying the assembled bikers with approval. "Hell of a turnout. Word travels fast when a kid needs help. Show me the boy." Jake led her to the truck. Tommy was awake, curled in the passenger seat, watching their approach with wary eyes. Jenny knocked gently on the window and waited for Tommy to unlock the door, giving him the power, Jake noticed. Small gesture, but it mattered. "Tommy, I'm Jenny. I'm an attorney, which means I help people when the law isn't working right. Mr. Malone called me because he thinks you need help. Is that true?" Tommy nodded slowly. "Okay, I need to ask you some questions. Some might be hard to answer, but I need you to be completely honest with me. Can you do that?" Another nod. Jenny spent 40 minutes in that truck just talking. Jake couldn't hear the conversation, but he watched Tommy's body language shift from defensive to cautiously trusting. Whatever Jenny was asking, however she was asking it, she was getting through. When she finally emerged, her expression had hardened into something dangerous. "We're not giving him back," she said flatly. "Not to Garrison, not to the sheriff, not to anyone. What he's describing, Jake, it's organized, systematic. Garrison's running a trafficking ring using foster care as cover. The kids are invisible in the system. No school records, minimal medical files, just quarterly reports rubber-stamped by an overworked social worker who probably never actually visits. Can you prove it? Not yet. But I know someone at the state AG's office. She owes me. And if there are really 5 more kids in that house..." Jenny's jaw clenched. "We need to get them out before Garrison realizes how much trouble he's in and destroys evidence. Or worse." Jake's blood ran cold. "You think he'd hurt them?" "I think he's looking at 20 to life if this gets out. People do desperate things when they're cornered." She pulled out her phone. "I'm making calls. We need state police, child protective services, and a warrant to enter that house. It's gonna take time, maybe 6-8 hours if we're lucky. Tommy says rich people come to the house at night, uses the kids somehow." Jenny's eyes went flat. Trafficking isn't always about transport. Sometimes it's about access. You bring the buyers to the product instead of moving the product to the buyers. Quieter, less risk, and if you're selling access to foster kids, nobody's watching. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Marcus joined them. "We got another problem. Word's spreading in town. Locals are starting to ask questions. Why are all these bikers at the gas station? What's going on? Should they be worried?" "Public pressure can work both ways," Jenny said. "If enough people are watching, Garrison can't act without witnesses. But if the wrong people get involved, one's in his pocket, it could force our hand early." As if summoning the devil by speaking his name, Jake's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered, "Yeah? Mr. Malone, this is Richard Garrison." The voice was smooth, cultured, carrying the absolute certainty of a man who'd never been told no. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." Tommy doesn't belong to anyone. Tommy is a troubled child with a history of behavioral issues and delusional episodes. He's been in my care for 2 years, and in that time, I've provided him with safety, education, and structure. Whatever stories he's told you are fabrications, cries for attention from a damaged boy. Funny, he seems pretty clear-headed to me. "Mr. Malone, I understand you think you're helping, but you're interfering with a legal custody arrangement. Return Tommy now, and I'll overlook this incident. Continue down this path, and I'll use every resource at my disposal to ensure you and your friends face serious legal consequences." Jake's voice dropped to ice. "Let me be clear, Mr. Garrison. That boy stays with us until someone I trust verifies he's safe. No threats, no legal maneuvering, no sheriff's intimidation is going to change that. If you're innocent like you claim, then you've got nothing to worry about from an investigation. But if you're what Tommy says you are—" Jake let the silence speak. "You're making a grave mistake." Garrison's composure cracked slightly. "Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? The connections I have? The people who will destroy you for this? I've faced worse than you, Mr. Garrison, and I'm still here." The call ended. Jenny was already on her phone, recording notes. That was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Little of both, probably. Jake watched the dawn beginning to break in the east, grey light creeping across the horizon. They'd held through the night. But now he knows we're not backing down. Question is, what does he do next? The answer came faster than anyone expected. At 4:52 a.m., Diana texted, "Urgent. Activity at Target House. Adult male loading multiple large bags into vehicle. Appears to be evacuating. Subject may be destroying evidence or relocating children. Recommend immediate intervention." Jake showed the message to Jenny. Her face went white. "We need to move now," she said. "If he's moving those kids, we might lose them forever. Foster care system is full of black holes. Kids get shuffled around, records get lost. He could scatter them across 3 states by noon. We don't have a warrant. We don't have authority. We have probable cause and exigent circumstances. If we believe children are in immediate danger, Jenny, we're bikers, not cops. We can't just raid his house." She met his eyes, and in that moment, Jake saw the same fury he felt. "No, but I can. I'm an officer of the court, and if I witness evidence of child endangerment, I'm legally obligated to intervene. You and your boys, you're just concerned citizens providing transportation and security for an attorney investigating allegations of abuse." It was the thinnest legal cover Jake had ever heard. It was also the only play they had. "Marcus," Jake called out, "saddle up, all of us. We're going to Willow Creek Road." "What's the play?" "We're about to find out if 97 bikers can save 6 kids before dawn." The engines roared to life like thunder, and Route 47 became a river of chrome and leather flowing toward justice. Or chaos. Maybe both. The convoy moved through pre-dawn darkness like a mechanical serpent, headlights cutting parallel paths through the mist. Jake rode point, Tommy behind him in Marcus's truck with Luis driving. Jenny followed in her Volvo, phone pressed to her ear as she coordinated with her contact at the Attorney General's office. Willow Creek Road appeared like a scar in the landscape, a narrow strip of asphalt cutting through dense woods, isolated houses set back from the road behind gates and privacy fences. Wealth lived here, the kind that preferred distance from questions and neighbors. The Garrison House announced itself through architectural arrogance, A white colonial with black shutters, manicured lawn, and that black iron fence Tommy had described. Spotlights illuminated the property like a stage set, but the performance was wrong. Lights blazed in every window, and a black Mercedes sat in the driveway. Trunk open, backseat loaded with luggage. Jake raised his fist. The convoy stopped 200 yards out, engines idling. Diana's voice crackled through his phone speaker. Garrison loaded 4 large bags in the last 20 minutes. Interior thermal shows 6 small figures still in basement location. Adult male moving between basement and main floor repeatedly. You need to hurry. Jenny. Jake turned to the Volvo. She emerged, face set in grim determination. State police are 30 minutes out, but if those kids are in danger right now, they are. Jake's certainty was absolute. He's either running or erasing evidence. Either way, those kids don't have 30 minutes. Then we go now. But Jake, this has to be by the book. We document everything. No violence. No property damage unless absolutely necessary. We're witnesses, understand? Everything we see, everything we do, it's all going to be scrutinized. Jake nodded and keyed his radio. Everyone, listen up. We're approaching the property to conduct a welfare check on 6 minors. We have reasonable suspicion that they're in immediate danger. This is a rescue operation, not a raid. We stay calm. We stay legal and we protect those kids. Any questions? Silence. Then let's go get them. The 97 motorcycles rolled forward in precise formation, surrounding the Garrison property in a loose perimeter. The noise was immense, a wall of sound that shattered the wealthy neighborhood's careful quiet. Lights flickered on in neighboring houses. Good, Jake thought. Let them watch. Let everyone see what happens next. Garrison appeared on the front porch, phone to his ear, face twisted in fury. He was younger than Jake had imagined, maybe 45, fit, well-dressed even at 5 in the morning, the kind of man who controlled every room he entered. Except this room had 97 bikers in it. "You're trespassing," Garrison shouted over the engine noise. "I'm calling the police." "Already on their way," Jenny called back, stepping forward with her phone raised, recording. "Mr. Garrison, I'm Jennifer Blackwood, attorney at law. I'm here to conduct a welfare check on the 6 minors currently in your custody. I have reasonable suspicion that they're in immediate danger. You can allow us access voluntarily, or you can wait for the state police to arrive with a warrant. Your choice. You have no authority. I have the authority of every citizen to prevent harm to a child. Now, where are they?" Garrison's composure cracked. His eyes darted to the Mercedes, calculating distances, escape routes. Jake saw the moment he decided to run, that micro-expression of desperate determination. "Mark, the car!" Jake moved. Marcus was faster. His Sportster cut across the driveway, blocking the Mercedes. 3 other bikes joined him, forming a wall of chrome. Garrison bolted, not for the car, but back into the house. Jake heard a deadbolt slide home. "Basement," Jenny said, checking Diana's surveillance feed. "He's going for the basement. The kids are down there." Jake made the decision in a heartbeat. "Luis, Carter, with me. Everyone else secure the perimeter. No one gets in or out." They approached the front door. Jake tried the handle, locked as expected. He looked at Jenny. "We need to get in there. Now." "Exigent circumstances," she said. "If we believe lives are in immediate danger—" The sound of children screaming cut through the air. Jake didn't hesitate. His boot hit the door once, twice, 3 times. The frame splintered on the 4th kick, and they were inside. The house was pristine. Designer furniture, expensive art, the carefully curated aesthetic of someone who needed to project success. But it felt hollow, staged, like a showroom instead of a home, more screaming from below. Jake followed the sound to a door beneath the main staircase, locked naturally. This time Carter produced a crowbar from his vest, and they forced it open. The basement stairs descended into darkness. Jake flipped on his phone's flashlight, and what he saw made his stomach turn. 6 children, ranging from maybe 5 to 14, huddled in the corner of an unfinished basement. They were filthy, some in pajamas, others in clothes too small. A girl clutched a younger boy, shielding him with her body. They all wore the same expression Tommy had worn, terror mixed with desperate hope. Garrison stood between Jake and the children, holding a metal jerry can that reeked of gasoline. If you've been following this story, please take a second to hit that like button. We need to spread awareness about situations like this. Every share helps. Don't come closer, Garrison said, his voice shaking now. I'll do it. I'll burn it all. The evidence, the records, everything. Jake raised his hand slowly. Richard, listen to me. This is over. The police are coming. The state attorney general is involved. Running makes it worse. Hurting those kids makes it unforgivable. You don't understand! Garrison's mask finally shattered completely. Do you know how much money is in this? How many powerful people? They'll bury me. I'm already dead. At least this way. At least this way 6 kids die. Luis stepped forward beside Jake. Is that your plan? Kill children to cover your crimes? They're not children, they're... Garrison stopped himself, but too late. The words hung in the air. They're not children, they're assets, commodities, things. Jenny was recording everything from the stairs, her lawyer's voice steady and clear. Richard Garrison, you are currently threatening minors in your custody with deadly force. Every word you're saying is being documented. Put down the gasoline. Sarah, Jake called to the oldest girl, get the others and come toward me. Slowly. Mr. Garrison isn't going to hurt you. Don't, Garrison warned. Don't move. But Sarah, brave 14-year-old Sarah, who'd probably protected those younger kids for months or years, made the choice. She stood, pulling the others up with her, and walked toward Jake's voice. Garrison lunged, reaching for her. Jake moved faster. Years of military training took over. He caught Garrison's arm, twisted, and dropped the man to the concrete floor. The jerrycan clattered away, gasoline spilling harmlessly across the floor. Luis and Carter immediately swarmed the children, lifting them, carrying them up the stairs toward safety. Jake held Garrison down, knee in his back, as sirens finally wailed in the distance. It's over, Jake said quietly. You're done. Garrison didn't fight anymore. He just lay there, face pressed to the cold concrete, and wept. By the time state police arrived 7 minutes later, all 6 children were wrapped in blankets, surrounded by 97 bikers who'd formed a protective circle. The kids didn't understand what was happening. They'd been invisible for so long, they couldn't process suddenly being the center of so much protective attention. But Tommy understood. He sat with them, holding Carlos's hand, and whispered, "It's okay now. These are the good guys. They keep their promises." And for the first time in 2 years, those 6 children were safe. The Garrison house transformed into a crime scene as dawn broke fully. State police vehicles filled the street, joined by unmarked cars carrying investigators from the Attorney General's office. Yellow tape cordoned off the property, and forensic teams moved through the rooms with methodical precision. Jake stood beside Jenny in the driveway, watching as investigators carried out box after box of evidence. Computers, filing cabinets, photographs, financial records. Each box represented another piece of the puzzle, another strand in the web Garrison had woven. Preliminary search turned up a server farm in a false wall behind his office, Jenny said, reading updates from her phone. Encrypted files, offshore accounts, communications with Jesus, Jake, 23 names so far. Lawyers, a state senator, 3 doctors, 2 judges. This isn't just trafficking, it's a network. How long do you think it's been operating? Based on financial records, at least 7 years, probably longer. Jenny's voice was hollow with exhaustion and fury. He was careful, only took kids who were already in the system, already invisible. No family looking for them, no teachers reporting them missing. He chose victims nobody would notice. Except Tommy noticed. Tommy ran, and that's what cracked it open. Jenny watched as paramedics loaded the 6 children into ambulances, not for injuries, but for proper medical evaluation and care. One brave kid refusing to be invisible. Marcus approached, his expression grim. Sheriff Warren just left. Didn't look at anyone, didn't say a word. My guess, he's already lawyering up. He should be, Jenny said. Obstruction of justice at minimum. Possibly conspiracy if he knew what Garrison was doing and failed to act. The DA's going to shred everyone connected to this. A young woman in a state police uniform approached. Detective Sarah Chen, according to her badge. Miss Blackwood, Mr. Malone. We need statements from everyone who entered the house, and we'll need to take custody of Tommy Westfield for proper placement. No. Jake's voice was flat. Chen blinked. Excuse me? Tommy stays with us until Jenny arranges proper verified placement, not the regular foster system. Somewhere safe, somewhere checked and triple-checked. Jake's tone left no room for argument. That boy ran from hell and found us by accident. We're not handing him back into a system that failed him. Mr. Malone, I understand your concern, but there are protocols. Detective, Jenny stepped forward, her attorney voice activating. My client has made his position clear. Tommy Westfield will remain in protective custody of his choosing until such time as appropriate placement can be verified through my office. Given the systematic failures that led to this situation, I think we can all agree that rushing him into standard placement would be irresponsible at best, negligent at worst. Chen looked between them, then sighed. I'll need to clear it with my superiors. You do that. In the meantime, Tommy stays with us. As Chen walked away, Jake turned to find Tommy himself, standing a few feet away, Marcus's jacket still wrapped around his small frame. The boy had been crying, relief tears probably, or processing tears, or just the pure exhaustion of finally being safe. Hey, buddy, Jake said gently. How you holding up? Are they really going to be okay? Sarah and the others? Yeah, they're going to get medical care, therapy, and real homes. Homes where people actually care about them. What about me? Jake knelt to Tommy's eye level. What about you is that you get to choose. Jenny's going to find you a good placement. Might take a few days, but until then, you're welcome to stay with me and the crew. We've got a clubhouse with spare rooms. Not fancy, but it's safe. You'd do that, even though you don't know me. Tommy, at this point, you're family. You trusted us when you had every reason not to trust anyone. That matters. Jake extended his hand. Deal? Tommy stared at the offered hand for a long moment, then took it. His grip was small, but surprisingly firm. Deal. The sound of more motorcycles approaching made them all turn. Word had spread through the riding community, not just locally, but regionally. Crews from neighboring states were arriving, drawn by the news of what had happened. By noon, over 200 bikers surrounded the Garrison house, forming a human barrier between the investigation and any attempt at interference. We're news now, Marcus said, showing Jake his phone. The local TV station was running coverage. Motorcycle club rescues 6 children from alleged trafficking ring. Social media was exploding with the story. Pictures of bikers forming protective circles around small children, of Tommy sitting safely in Jake's truck, of 97 motorcycles illuminated like a fortress at dawn. Good, Jake said. Let everyone see. Let them know what happened here, and let them know we don't stand for this. Any of us. Jenny's phone rang. She listened for 30 seconds, then hung up with a small, savage smile. That was the AG's office. Garrison starting to talk, trying to negotiate a deal by giving up names. The network's going to collapse. They're already executing search warrants across 3 states. How long until trial? Months, maybe a year. But he's not getting out. 23 counts of child trafficking, 6 counts of kidnapping, dozens of financial crimes. Richard Garrison is going to die in prison. It should have felt like victory, but as Jake watched the forensic teams continue their grim work, as he thought about 7 years of children suffering while the world looked away, it felt more like a battle won in a war that never should have started. "Jake," Tommy's small voice pulled him back. "Thank you for believing me." "Always, kid, always." The sun rose higher, burning away the last of the morning mist. The Garrison house, that perfect facade of respectability, stood exposed for what it truly was, a monument to cruelty, wrapped in respectability. But it was over now. The secret was out. The children were safe, and 97 bikers had proven that sometimes the truest protectors don't wear badges. They wear leather and ride steel. The clubhouse wasn't much to look at. A converted warehouse on the industrial side of town, surrounded by chain-link fence and motorcycles in various states of repair. But inside, it was home, worn leather couches, a kitchen that always smelled like coffee, walls covered in riding photos and military memorabilia, and a sense of brotherhood that transcended blood. Tommy explored cautiously, taking in the space with wide eyes. He'd been quiet since leaving the Garrison house 6 hours ago, processing everything in that way traumatized children do. Slowly, carefully, testing each new reality before accepting it. "That's the rec room." Luis pointed to a space with a pool table and ancient TV. "Kitchen's through there, bathrooms upstairs. Your room's next to Jake's. Door locks from the inside, so you've got privacy whenever you need it." "My room?" "Yeah. Just for now, until Jenny sorts out permanent placement. But while you're here, it's yours. Nobody comes in without permission. Nobody bothers you. House rules." Tommy nodded, still not quite believing this was real. Jake emerged from the kitchen carrying 2 sandwiches and a soda. "Figured you might be hungry. Real food this time, not gas station stuff." They sat at the large wooden table that served as the clubhouse's communal center. Outside, the sound of motorcycles continued as crews came and went, bringing supplies, checking in, maintaining the protective watch they'd started. "Why do you all do this?" Tommy asked suddenly. "Help people, I mean. You could just ride and not get involved." Jake considered the question carefully. "Most of us here, we're veterans, former cops, guys who've seen what happens when good people don't stand up. We've all got our reasons. Mine, I lost my sister when I was 15. Drug dealer kidnapped her, killed her when the ransom wasn't paid fast enough. Police tried, but by the time they found her..." He paused. "I swore then that if I ever had the chance to stop someone from going through that, to save someone when it mattered, I'd do it. Every time. No exceptions." "I'm sorry about your sister." "Me too, but she's why I found you behind that dumpster, why I didn't just drive past." Jake met Tommy's eyes. "Your running probably saved your life, and Sarah's and Carlos's and the others. That took guts most adults don't have. I was just scared. Being scared and doing it anyway, that's the definition of courage, kid." Jenny arrived an hour later with news. "I found a placement. Emma and John Morrison, they're in their 50s, licensed foster parents with a spotless record, former teachers. They've taken in special needs kids, trauma cases, and they're specifically trained in helping children who've experienced abuse. They live 2 towns over, nice house, big yard. They're willing to take Tommy on emergency placement while we sort everything else out." "They good people?" Jake asked. "The best I know," Jenny said firmly. "I've worked with them on 4 cases over the years. Every kid who's gone through their home speaks highly of them. No complaints, no red flags. They understand trauma, they're patient, and they won't push Tommy before he's ready." Tommy looked between Jake and Jenny, uncertainty written across his face. "Do I have to go?" "Not if you don't want to," Jenny said gently. "But Tommy, you deserve a real home. A place where someone can focus entirely on you, get you into school, into therapy, help you heal properly. Jake and the guys, they care about you, but they're not equipped for long-term care. The Morrisons are. Can I meet them first? Absolutely. They're coming by tomorrow morning. You talk to them, see how you feel. If you're not comfortable, we find someone else. You get a say in this. That's a promise. Jake squeezed Tommy's shoulder. Whatever you decide, we're still here. You need anything at all, you call. We're not going anywhere. The rest of the evening passed in quiet normalcy, the kind Tommy probably hadn't experienced in years. Dinner around the big table with a dozen bikers, stories told and retold, laughter that felt safe rather than threatening. Marcus taught him a few pool shots. Carter showed him pictures of his own grandkids. Luis checked his bruises one more time just to be sure. At 10 p.m., exhaustion finally caught up with Tommy. Jake walked him upstairs to the small room they'd prepared. Clean sheets, a nightlight, the door lock Luis had mentioned. "You gonna be okay?" Jake asked. "Yeah, I think so." Tommy paused at the doorway. "Mr. Jake, when you find someone who's in trouble, do you always help them? When we can. Why? There was a girl at one of Mr. Garrison's meetings. She was crying. She kept saying she wanted to go home, but the man with her said she didn't have a home anymore." Tommy's voice dropped to a whisper. "She wasn't one of us. She was from somewhere else. I heard them speaking a different language." Jake's blood ran cold. "When was this? 2 months ago? Maybe 3. I only saw her once. After that, she was gone." Jake forced himself to stay calm. "Can you describe her?" "Maybe 13 or 14. Dark hair. She had a scar on her cheek like this." Tommy traced a line down his own face. "And a bracelet with little flowers on it." "Red flowers?" "Okay, thank you for telling me. That's important information. I'm going to pass it to Detective Chen, okay? They might want to ask you more questions tomorrow." Tommy nodded and retreated into his room. The lock clicked softly. Jake descended the stairs to find Marcus waiting, his expression knowing. "More victims?" "Maybe. Sounds like Garrison was connected to something bigger than just local trafficking. International, possibly." Jake pulled out his phone and texted Chen the details. "That girl Tommy described, if she was foreign national, no papers, scared. She could be anywhere by now. Or nowhere." Marcus's voice was grim. "These networks, kids disappear into them and don't come out." The next morning brought the Morrisons, exactly as Jenny had described. Emma was a warm woman with kind eyes and grey hair pulled back in a practical bun. John was tall, quiet, with the patient demeanor of someone who'd spent decades working with children. They didn't push, didn't make promises they couldn't keep, just talked to Tommy like he was a person worth listening to. "We're not going to pretend everything's okay," Emma said gently. "What you went through, it's going to take time to process. We work with a therapist named Dr. Sarah Kim. She's wonderful with kids who've experienced trauma. You'd see her twice a week to start, more if you need it." "What about school?" Tommy asked. "We'll get you enrolled, but there's no rush. Take a week or 2 to settle in first. Get your bearings. School will still be there when you're ready." "And if I have nightmares?" "Then we sit with you until they pass," John said simply. "That's what we do. You're not alone anymore, Tommy. Not ever again." Tommy looked at Jake. "What do you think?" "I think they're good people. I think you'd be safe there and happy eventually." Jake knelt to Tommy's level one last time. "But it's your choice. Whatever you decide, we support you." Tommy was quiet for a long moment, then, "Okay, I'll try it." The goodbyes were harder than Jake expected. Tommy hugged him tightly. This small boy who'd been so terrified just 2 days ago, now showing the first signs of trust and healing. "Thank you for believing me," Tommy whispered. "Always, kid. You've got my number. You need anything at all, you call, day or night. I will. The Morrisons' car pulled away with Tommy in the back seat, waving until they turned the corner. Jake stood in the clubhouse parking lot long after they'd disappeared, Marcus beside him. You did good, Marcus said. We did good, all of us. You think he'll be okay? Yeah, eventually. He's tough, tougher than any kid should have to be. Jake watched the empty street, but he's got a chance now. Real support, real help. That's more than he had before. Jenny approached with final updates. DA's office is building their case. Garrison's cooperating now, giving up everyone. The network's collapsing. They've made 17 arrests so far, with more coming. This thing reached into 4 states and involved people we never suspected. What about the girl Tommy mentioned? The one with the scar? Chen's running it through missing persons databases, international networks. If she's out there, they'll find her. Jenny paused. This is going to be big, Jake. National news, congressional hearings possibly. What you guys did, it exposed something people have been trying to ignore for years. We just protected a kid. No, you protected 7 kids and exposed a criminal network that victimized hundreds. Don't minimize what happened here. Jenny's voice was fierce. You saved lives, plural, and you did it because you gave a damn when it was easier not to. The news coverage exploded over the following days. The story spread across social media, news outlets, even international coverage. Bikers Save Children from Trafficking ring became a rallying cry, a reminder that heroes didn't always come in expected forms. Donations poured into the clubhouse, people wanting to support the cause, to help other victims, to make sure this never happened again. Jake worked with Jenny to establish the Tommy Westfield Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to identifying at-risk children in the foster system and providing resources to protect them. 3 weeks later, Jake received a call from an unknown number. Mr. Jake, it's Tommy. Hey buddy, how are you? Good, really good actually. The Morrisons. They're nice. I started school. It's weird being around other kids, but it's good weird. A pause. I wanted to tell you something. Dr. Kim says I should share when I'm feeling grateful, and I'm grateful you stopped that night. You could have just kept driving, but you didn't. I'm glad I stopped too. Also, Sarah called. She's with a family in Vermont now. She wanted me to thank you guys, all of you. She said to tell you that we're okay. We're gonna be okay. After the call ended, Jake sat in the quiet clubhouse and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They'd done something impossible, taken on a system designed to hide its victims and won. More importantly, they'd proven something Jake had always believed, that ordinary people could do extraordinary things when they chose to act instead of looking away. The road stretched on, as it always did. There would be other calls, other kids who needed help, other fights worth fighting. But tonight, 7 children slept safely, and that was enough. 6 months passed like a strange dream. The Garrison case dominated headlines, spawned documentaries, and triggered federal investigations into foster care systems across 12 states. Richard Garrison sat in county jail without bail, his perfect life dismantled piece by piece in the harsh light of public scrutiny. The trial began on a cold April morning. Jake sat in the gallery beside Marcus, both wearing their cleanest leather vests as a quiet statement. We're still watching. Around them sat 40 other bikers who'd been there that night on Route 47, witnesses, protectors, and a reminder that some people couldn't be intimidated into silence. Tommy testified via closed-circuit video from a secure location, Jenny beside him throughout. He was stronger now. Therapy and time had done their work. But the courtroom still fell silent as his small voice described 2 years of systematic abuse and exploitation. Mr. Garrison told us we were lucky, Tommy said, his voice steady despite the tremor underneath. He said nobody wanted us, nobody cared about us, and if we told anyone what happened, we'd end up somewhere worse. He made us believe we were nothing. And what made you finally run? The prosecutor asked gently. I saw a girl. She was new. She was crying and begging to go home, and I realized that this was never going to stop unless someone stopped it. So I ran. I didn't have a plan. I just ran until I found Mr. Jake. The defense attorney tried to paint Tommy as a troubled child with credibility issues. It lasted approximately 3 minutes before Jenny demolished that narrative with medical records, forensic evidence, and testimony from the other rescued children, all of whom told identical stories. Sarah testified in person. At 15 now, she'd aged beyond her years, but carried herself with quiet dignity. We protected each other, she said, the younger ones especially. We knew what was happening wasn't right, but we didn't know how to stop it. When Tommy ran, we thought he'd been caught, when the bikers came instead. Her voice broke. That was the first time I believed adults could actually help. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. Encrypted communications detailing transactions, financial records showing payments from wealthy clients, victim testimony from children across multiple states, and forensic evidence from the Garrison house that painted a picture of systematic, organized trafficking spanning 7 years. 23 co-conspirators had already pleaded guilty in exchange for testimony. The network's scope was staggering. Lawyers, doctors, a state senator, 2 judges, business executives, all connected through Garrison's carefully constructed system. Sheriff Warren took the stand in his own defense, claiming ignorance. The jury didn't believe him. Surveillance footage showed him at the Garrison house on 3 separate occasions. Financial records revealed monthly payments, and witness testimony placed him at client meetings. He received 15 years for obstruction of justice and conspiracy. The verdict came on a Thursday afternoon after 3 hours of deliberation. Guilty on all counts. Richard Garrison showed no emotion as the judge read 47 separate convictions. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Jake left the courthouse to find a crowd waiting. Reporters, certainly, but also ordinary people holding signs. Thank you, bikers. Heroes wear leather. Protect our children. It was overwhelming and humbling in equal measure. Mr. Malone, a reporter pushed forward. How does it feel knowing you helped bring down one of the largest trafficking networks in state history? It feels like we did what anyone should do, protected kids who needed help. Jake kept his voice level. But this isn't over. There are still children out there in broken systems, still predators hiding behind respectability. We can't stop paying attention just because this case is closed. Will you continue this work? As long as kids need protecting, yeah, we will. The Tommy Westfield Foundation had grown beyond anything Jake imagined. With donations and Jenny's legal expertise, they'd established a hotline for at-risk foster children, funded legal representation for abuse cases, and created a network of verified trauma-informed foster homes across 6 states. Tommy himself had become a quiet advocate. Now 11 years old, living happily with the Morrisons, he occasionally spoke at fundraisers, always with support, never pushed beyond his comfort level. His message was simple: listen to kids, believe them, don't look away. Sentencing day arrived with unexpected spring warmth. The courtroom was packed. Victims, families, advocates, and that core group of bikers who'd started it all on a cold November night. Judge Patricia Morrison, no relation to Tommy's foster parents, had a reputation for harsh sentences in crimes against children. She didn't disappoint. Mr. Garrison, you exploited your position of trust to victimize the most vulnerable members of our society. You turned foster care, a system designed to protect, into a pipeline for abuse. You destroyed childhoods, shattered lives, and did so with calculated cruelty over many years. She sentenced him to 47 consecutive life terms without possibility of parole. Richard Garrison would die in prison, his name forever synonymous with betrayal and evil. As marshals led him away, Garrison looked directly at Jake. No words were exchanged, but the message was clear. "You destroyed my life." Jake stared back with equal intensity. "You destroyed yourself. We just exposed it." Outside, Tommy waited with the Morrisons. He'd wanted to be there for sentencing, to see with his own eyes that the monster was truly caged. "It's over," Jake told him. "Really over now." Tommy nodded, then surprised everyone by stepping forward and hugging Jake tightly. "Thank you for stopping, for listening, for everything." "You're welcome, kid, but you did the hard part. You survived and you spoke up. That took real courage." Sarah approached with her Vermont foster parents, along with Carlos and his new family. The 6 rescued children had stayed in touch, forming a bond that would last their lifetimes. They'd survived hell together, and now they'd build futures together. "Group photo," Marcus suggested, his voice gruff with emotion. They gathered on the courthouse steps, 7 children, 97 bikers, Jenny, and a crowd of supporters. The image would later become iconic. Innocence, protected by unlikely guardians, proof that family isn't always blood, and heroes don't always wear badges. That night, back at the clubhouse, Jake sat alone with his thoughts. The case was closed. Justice had been served. The children were safe. So why did it still feel unfinished? His phone buzzed. A text from Detective Chen. "Got a hit on that girl," Tommy described. "Maria Reyes, 14, reported missing from Guatemala 3 years ago. Last known location, trafficking ring in southern border states. Task force is pursuing." "Thought you'd want to know." There it was, the answer to his lingering disquiet. The work wasn't finished because it was never finished. For every child they saved, dozens more remained trapped in darkness, but that didn't mean they stopped trying. Jake typed back, "Keep me updated. If she needs protection or support when you find her, we're here." Marcus appeared in the doorway. "You good?" "Yeah, just thinking about what's next. There's always a next, brother. That's the job. Then I guess we'd better get ready for it." They stood together in the quiet clubhouse, surrounded by the memorabilia of 1,000 rides and countless rescues. The road stretched endlessly ahead, filled with children who needed protecting and fights worth fighting. And they'd be ready. Always. 1 year after that November night on Route 47, the clubhouse hosted an anniversary gathering. Not a celebration, the circumstances were too grim for that, but an acknowledgement, a recognition that ordinary people had done something extraordinary. Tommy arrived with the Morrisons, taller now, healthier, showing the first signs of genuine adolescence rather than traumatized childhood. Sarah drove up from Vermont with her foster parents. Carlos and the other rescued children came with their families. Together, they represented not just survival, but healing. "I wrote something," Tommy said quietly to Jake. "For today. If it's okay, I'd like to share it." "Of course, kid." They gathered in the main room, bikers, families, supporters, and a handful of reporters Jenny had carefully vetted. Tommy stood in the center, a piece of paper trembling slightly in his hands. "A year ago, I was hiding behind a dumpster, thinking I was going to die. I'd run because I was scared, but I had nowhere to go and nobody to help me. Then Mr. Jake stopped. He didn't have to. He could have just gotten his coffee and left, but he didn't." Tommy's voice grew stronger. "What happened next? 97 bikers showing up, the rescue, everything. It wasn't magic. It was people choosing to care, choosing to act, choosing to believe a scared kid they didn't know." He looked around the room. "Sarah says I'm brave for running, but the real bravery was everyone here who stood up to power and said no more. Who put themselves at risk for kids they'd never met, who proved that family isn't about blood, it's about showing up when it matters." Tommy folded the paper. "So thank you, all of you. You gave me my life back. You gave all of us our lives back, and I promise we won't waste them." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Jenny stood next, outlining the foundation's work. 53 at-risk children identified and moved to safer placements, 12 legal cases won against abusive foster providers, a new state law requiring quarterly independent reviews of all foster homes, and federal funding secured for trauma-informed care training. "This is Tommy's legacy," Jenny said. "One brave boy who changed an entire system. But it's also the legacy of everyone in this room. Proof that citizens can demand better and create change when institutions fail." The reports came next. Detective Chen updating them on the broader investigation. The Garrison network had led to 187 arrests across 8 states, the rescue of 94 children, and the permanent closure of 17 fraudulent foster agencies. International cooperation had recovered 12 children trafficked from other countries, including Maria Reyes, the girl Tommy had described. "She's safe now," Chen told them, being reunited with her family in Guatemala. "She wanted me to tell Tommy that his memory of her, remembering her when nobody else did, saved her life." Marcus presented plaques to the core group who'd been there that first night, not for glory, but for remembrance. "We ride for a lot of reasons," he said. "Freedom, brotherhood, the open road, but sometimes we ride for something bigger. This was one of those times." As afternoon faded to evening, Jake found himself standing outside with Tommy, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. "What happens now?" Tommy asked. "I mean, the trial's over. The case is closed. Do you just go back to normal?" "There is no normal anymore. Not after this." Jake considered his words carefully. "But that's okay. Normal was looking away when kids needed help. Normal was assuming someone else would handle it. We learned we can do better than normal." "Will you keep helping? Other kids, I mean?" "Absolutely. The foundation's just getting started, and there are a lot of kids out there who need someone to believe them." Jake looked down at Tommy. "What about you? What happens now for you?" "I'm going to finish middle school, then high school, then maybe college. The Morrisons say they'll help with that." Tommy's voice carried tentative hope. "And maybe someday I'll work with kids like me, help them the way you helped me." "You'd be good at that." "You think so?" "I know so. You've got the most important qualification, you understand. You've been there. That matters more than any degree." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun disappear below the horizon. Motorcycles lined the lot, their chrome catching the last rays of light. Inside, laughter and conversation continued, the sound of community, of family, of people who'd chosen each other. "Mr. Jake?" Tommy's voice was soft. "I know I say this a lot, but thank you for stopping that night, for listening, for believing me when nobody else did." "Tommy, you don't have to keep thanking me." "Yes, I do, because you taught me something important, that there are still good people in the world, people who keep promises, people who care." Tommy's eyes were bright with emotion. "I was starting to forget that. You reminded me." Jake pulled the kid into a hug, this boy who'd been so terrified a year ago, now standing strong and hopeful. "You reminded me too, kid. Reminded all of us why this matters." As darkness settled fully, the gathering moved back inside. Stories were shared, memories recounted, and plans made for continued work. The Tommy Westfield Foundation would expand to neighboring states. New partnerships would form with child advocacy groups. The fight would continue. But tonight was about recognition, acknowledging what had been accomplished and honoring those who'd made it possible. Jenny raised a glass in toast. To Tommy, who ran toward hope. To the 97 bikers who answered the call. To everyone who proved that ordinary people can accomplish extraordinary things. And to every child still waiting for someone to believe them, we're coming. We won't stop until you're safe. "Here, here!" The room echoed with agreement. Jake caught Tommy's eye across the crowded room. The kid was smiling now. A real smile, unforced and genuine. Around him, Sarah and the other rescued children laughed at something Marcus was saying. They looked like normal kids, finally, with futures stretching bright before them. This is what it was all about, Jake thought. Not the headlines or the awards or the recognition, just this, children laughing, safe and protected, with the whole world open before them. 1 year ago, Jake had stopped for coffee at a lonely gas station. That single decision had set everything in motion. The rescue, the investigation, the trial, the reform. It proved something he'd always believed, that individual choices mattered, that one person acting with courage could change everything. Tommy had run toward hope and found it in the form of 97 bikers who refused to look away. And in doing so, he'd changed all of them, reminded them of their purpose, their power, and their responsibility to those who couldn't protect themselves. The road stretched on, as it always did. More rides, more calls, more children who needed protecting. The work would never truly be finished, but tonight they could celebrate this victory. Tonight they could acknowledge that 7 children were safe, that justice had been served, and that good people working together had torn down a network of evil. Thank you so much for watching this story. If it moved you, please consider subscribing to our channel and sharing this video. Every share helps raise awareness about child trafficking and the importance of speaking up when something isn't right. Together, we can protect more children and ensure that stories like Tommy's have happy endings. Until next time, stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember, sometimes heroes wear leather. As the gathering continued into the night, Jake stepped outside one final time. The stars were brilliant overhead, the air crisp and clean. Somewhere out there, a child might be hiding, scared and alone, waiting for someone to stop and listen. And when that call came, whether tomorrow or next week or next year, Jake and his brothers would be ready, because that's what they did. That's what they'd always do, protect the innocent, honor their word, and ride toward justice, no matter the cost. The promise stood, ironclad and unbreakable. Please don't let him find me. We won't. We promise. And they'd keep that promise every single time.